Have I told you about the Keeper of Quiet Crimes? In the lowlands of Valhalla, where dawn always looked a little guilty, and dusk lingered like a secret with sharp teeth, there lived a man named Rurik. He was known as the Keeper of Quiet Crimes. Not criminal crimes, not the kind carved in court records, not the kind punished by kings. No, Rurik collected the tiny wrongs people committed against themselves. The dreams they discarded because someone laughed. The forgiveness withheld because pride was addicted to power. The bravery postponed until the moment was too late to use. He gathered these little failures the way others gather firewood, and in the hidden chamber beneath the city he stored them in glass jars that glowed faintly with regret. Rurik believed that if he carried the people's quiet crimes, they would never have to. He called it mercy, but it was something else. Then the day the jars began to crack. One winter, the jars began to fracture in the cold. Hairline cracks at first, thin as lost chances, then deeper breaks, jagged as broken promises, finally shattering, a thunder of truth escaping confinement altogether. Regrets spilled into the streets like ghosts finally allowed to remember their names. People felt it instantly. Old failures resurfaced, abandoned ambitions returned like a fever dream. Choices they thought buried rose up like storms in their chests. Panic shook the city, as if every heart had been forced to face its own unfinished business all together at the same time. They demanded answers, and Rurik hid. He locked himself in the chamber with the broken jars as regret poured all around him, drowning him in a flood of unmet potential. And then came a girl with an unshaken voice. When the city's fear grew too loud, a girl named Nera walked into this chamber. No weapon, no anger, just a lantern and a steadiness Rurik had not seen in years. "What have you done?" she asked. Rurik, surrounded by spilled regret, whispered, I took what people could not bear. I thought I could protect them from their own failures." Nera knelt in the ruins. "You cannot protect people from the work they refuse to do." He shook his head. "I wanted to spare them the pain." Her lantern cast a long shadow that split the chamber like judgment. "Pain is how people learn," she said. "You stole their lessons, and you called it compassion." The words hit him like a truth long overdue. In this reckoning, Nera picked up a glowing shard from the shattered regret jars, its light trembling like a confession that had waited just too long. "This regret is not yours," she said. "Neither is that one. Or that one. You hoarded other people's healing because you didn't want to face your own." Rurik's breath broke, because he saw it. In the corner of the chamber lay 3 jars, more luminous, more fractured, more painful than all the rest. His own. The dreams he'd abandoned, the courage he'd postponed, the love he'd denied himself out of fear of being known. He had built a cathedral of regret to avoid the small shrine of truth inside his own chest. And then a release. At Nera's urging, Rurik lifted his own jar. It pulsed, bright, burning, brutal. Every moment he'd ever betrayed himself in, and then he opened it. The regret did not attack. It did not accuse. It did not shame. It simply flowed through him like a river returning to its source, aching, cleansing, real. And when he exhaled, the city exhaled. Every regret rising in the streets settled back not into jars but into hearts ready, finally ready, to accept and transform them. People wept, then people healed. People changed because regret was no longer a ghost but a guide. You cannot carry someone else's inner work. You cannot absolve them by absorbing what they refuse to face. And you cannot heal yourself by hoarding the healing of others. Regret must be revealed to be redeemed. Pain must be faced to be freed. And accountability is the birthright of every soul that hopes to grow. If you hide someone's regret, you steal their redemption. If you hide your own, you're stealing life from yourself, the very essence of it. A man who carried 3 keys to the same locked door. In the half-forgotten realm of Interneville, where fog lay thick as doubt and roads twisted like regret, there lived a man named Kyle, who carried 3 keys on a cord around his neck. Each key was carved from a different metal: hope in silver, habit in iron, fear in lead. And Kyle believed, with the stubbornness of someone who has never questioned his own burdens, that these 3 keys would someday unlock the door to his destiny. He did not know that the door had been locked not by fate, but by him. And in his wandering, Kyle searched the realm for this legendary door, crossing the deserts of distraction, climbing mountains of meaning, and wading through swamps where sorrow somehow shaped the air. And everywhere he went, he'd press his keys against carvings and gates, hoping one might finally fit. But none ever did. Not the silver key of hope, too bright, too trusting, too quick to bend. Not the iron key of habit, too rigid, too heavy, too shaped like yesterday. And not the leaden key of fear, too cold, too convincing, too eager to whisper, "Don't try, I'm poison." Yet Kyle continued, certain that a destiny locked this tightly must be worth the wait and the effort. But in this mirror, at the edge of everything, after a lifetime of searching, Kyle reached the end of Interneville, a cliff where the world unraveled into endless sky. And at its center stood a single structure, a door made of polished obsidian that reflected him more clearly than any river or memory ever had. He approached it, trembling. This was it. At last! He lifted the silver key and tried to turn it. Nothing. Tried the iron. Nothing. Tried the lead. Nothing. He fell to his knees as the truth hit him like a prophecy returning home. I spent my whole life trying to unlock a destiny I never dared to enter in the first place. The door shimmered, shifted as it spoke, not with words, but with reflection. Its dark surface, Kyle saw something he had never seen clearly before. Each key hung heavy because he believed they were his only tools, but he had forgotten the tool not worn around his neck, but carried deep within his chest. Choice. Not fate, not chance, not prophecy. Choice. And in that unlocking, Kyle stood, shaking, honest standing, not heroic, human. He reached for the keys to try again, but his fingers stopped. Something inside him whispered, "The door is not locked. You are." So instead of forcing a key, he placed his palm flat against the obsidian. The door softened, not from magic, but from permission. It responded not to metal, but to movement, not to keys, but to courage. The door swung open with a sigh, like a burden relieved, like a truth admitted, like a past forgiven. Inside, Kyle found not a throne, not a treasure, not a prophecy fulfilled. He found a room with 4 words carved into the floor. Enter before you are ready. And he understood. Destiny wasn't waiting beyond the door. Destiny was the act of opening the door, despite not feeling worthy or prepared or even certain. We all walk around the world carrying keys we think will unlock our future. Hope that hesitates, habit that holds, fear that freezes. But the truth is sharper. The door to your destiny never needed a key, it needed you. Not perfect, not polished, not fully prepared, just willing. Because the greatest doors are not unlocked, they are approached too cautiously and never touched. The path you long for opens the moment you do. The girl who tried to own the wind. In the high plateaus of Arenfell, where mountains stood like ancient witnesses and ravens carved black circles in the sky, there lived a girl named Sarah who believed the wind itself was speaking to her. When she was young, the wind came soft, a hush of courage behind her ear, a murmur of instinct guiding her steps. A whisper of, "Go, try, rise." But as she grew older, and her world grew heavier, the wind changed tone. It came with questions she was afraid to answer, and truths she had no place to put. So Sarah devised a plan. If she could trap the wind, Maybe she could still feel its comfort without being confronted by its honesty. She built cages, beautiful ones, crafted from willow branches and severed reeds and threads of moonlit twine. Each cage hummed when the wind passed through it, like a harp plucked by a ghost. Sarah set them on the cliffs and waited. In the catching, the first gust she caught whispered to her ear, "Why do you hide your fear?" Sarah flinched and slammed the cage door shut. The second gust she trapped sighed, "You are meant for more than this." She locked it away too. The third gust laughed softly and said, "You pretend indifference because caring scares you." Sarah sealed that cage with trembling fingers. Soon she had dozens of them, cages filled with wind that no longer blew free, voices confined like truths in captivity. From afar, the villagers saw only a girl collecting breezes, but inside each cage was something she refused to hear. In this storm of consequence one night, as a mighty weather rose, not the kind that cracks branches, the kind that cracks people and souls. Thunder rolled across cliffs like a verdict. Lightning split the sky like a scream. And one by one, Sarah's cages trembled and cracked. The whispers inside, the ones she tried to silence, began to merge. Fear, truth, longing, unanswered questions, unspoken confessions, all spiraling together in a single terrifying force. When the storm struck, the cages burst. Every trapped voice roared free at once. The wind didn't whisper now. It howled. It screamed. It bellowed. With everything Sarah had smothered, all the truth she had tried to trap instead of face. It knocked her to her knees and screamed the one thing she most needed and least wanted to hear. You cannot control what exists to move you. In her surrender, Sarah sobbed, arms wrapped around herself as the storm spun beside and around and above and below like a furious teacher. "I'm sorry," she cried. "I was scared." The wind softened, just enough to answer. "Fear is allowed," it murmured, "but silence is not. Not when the truth is calling your name." Sarah bowed her head. She let the wind pass through her without resistance for the first time in so many years. No cages, no locks, just breath, just honesty, just movement. And the storm, seeing she had surrendered not her will but her hiding, finally broke apart into sweet, gentle rain. You cannot imprison truth and expect peace. What you try to control will eventually confront you, and what you try to silence will eventually surround you. What you try to hide will eventually howl from deep within. But the wind, your instinct, your calling, your deeper knowing is not your enemy. It only becomes a storm when you refuse to let it speak. Listen early, so you don't have to be shattered later on. Attending the tale of missing coin. In the crooked town of Ledger's Bend, where truth was flexible and math had a habit of wandering off, 3 travelers stopped at an inn called the Tallyman's Table. Their names were Reason, Assumption, and Belief. 3 companions wandering the world in search of clarity, yet forever arguing over what clarity meant. They each placed a 10-coin piece on the counter for supper and shelter, 30 coins in total. The meal cost 25. Simple, honest, even. But the waiter, a sly man named Slight, lived by a different kind of logic, the kind where perception was more profitable than precision. He thought 5 coins and change split 3 ways makes for messy math, and they never tip. Why not rearrange reality a bit? So he slipped 2 coins into his pocket and handed 3 coins back, 1 to each traveler, and walked away, like a man proud of having rewritten arithmetic. Reason, Assumption, and Belief each now had spent 9 coins. 9 times 3 equals 27. Add Slight's 2 stolen, and you get 29. But 30 coins were given, so the travelers begged the question, has the haunted ledger's been ever since? Whom and where did that final coin go? In confrontation, reason demanded an audit. Assumption insisted the universe had made an error. Belief whispered that things sometimes vanish when people don't want to see them. They stormed into the kitchen, found Slight polishing plates with the confidence of a man who thinks a clever story is the same as truth. Where's the missing coin? Reason asked. Slight smirked. There is no missing coin. You're just adding the wrong things together. You took 2, said Assumption. We spent 27. That makes 29. Exactly, Slight said. And that is where your minds trap you. Belief narrowed his eyes. What are we forgetting? Slight tapped the table 3 times, 1 for each of them, and spoke a lesson people still struggle to learn. You add what was spent to what was stolen, but you ignore what was returned. Reason blinked. Assumption frowned. Belief finally understood. The 3 coins handed back to the travelers did not vanish. They simply were not part of the cost anymore. $25 meal, $2 stolen, 3 returned equals 30. The 27 each traveler spent includes their part of Slight's theft, not in addition to it. It's trickery. There was never a missing coin. There was only misguided math, misleading the framing and the mind eager to chase a mystery instead of the truth. When a story feels unsolved, look not for what disappeared, but for what was misplaced. Confusion grows where clarity was poorly added, and deception thrives when we mistake clever wording for genuine mystery. The missing dollar was never missing. The truth was simply hiding the wrong equation. Just like in life, we lose things not because they leave, but because we look for them where they never were. A boy who tried to bury his shadow. In a distant land not too far from here, where twilight lingered longer than it should, there lived a boy named Oren who was terrified of his own shadow. Not the kind cast by the sun or the moon, that was harmless. He feared the other one, the true one, the one that whispered in his ribs and followed him into every decision he wished he didn't have to make. This shadow wasn't darkness, it was truth. The part of himself he worked hardest to be. It carried every choice he ran from, every desire he denied, every grief he refused to name. Most people eventually make peace with their shadow, if not in daylight, then in their dreams. But Oren grew convinced that if he could bury his shadow deep enough, he could bury the parts of himself he didn't really want to admit were real. This pilgrimage of avoidance Oren set off on, with his shovel slung across his back and hope slung across thin his heart. He walked to the desert of distraction, thinking the sun would erase his shadow. But even at high noon, where dunes shifted like restless thoughts, it grew sharper, darker, even more defined. He fled to the forest of forgetting, where mist blurred memories and moss muffed regret. But the shadow clung to him like a debt unpaid, like a truth unspoken, like a name whispered only in the dark. Finally, he arrived at the Valley of Vanishing, a place said to swallow anything a person wished to lose. He raised his shovel, dug. He carved a grave wide enough for his fears and deep enough for his denial. And then he stepped back and commanded, "Stay buried." He covered the hole and felt a rush of relief that tasted temporary and dangerous. He left the valley feeling lighter but not freer, because freedom comes from facing what follows you, not hiding what haunts you. This consequence came weeks later, when something strange happened. Oren began to flicker, the way a candle flame does before it dies out. His laugh thinned, his courage crumbled, his choices felt borrowed from a person he was pretending to be. People passed him as if he were not fully there, and the emptier he felt, the more he realized what he had buried was not a burden, it was a foundation. A voice inside him whispered, faint but fierce, A life without a shadow is a life without depth. Orin panicked and ran back to the Valley of Vanishing as quickly as a fractured soul could run. In this unearthing, as he reached the grave and dug with bare hands, bleeding, breathless and desperate, the hole was empty. The shadow stood behind him, taller than before, not malicious, but magnificent, bearing the shape of every truth he had tried to kill. In a voice that was unmistakably his. "Do you understand now?" Orin fell to his knees. "I tried to bury you because I thought you were the worst part of me." Shadow knelt beside him. "I am the honest part of you, and honesty is heavy until you learn to carry it." Orin wept, and in the weeping became whole again. He reached out and touched his shadow, and for the first time it did not feel like a threat, but a companion. He realized he cannot bury the parts of himself that he does not want to see. We can only bury our ability to become what we were meant to be. And if the shadow does not ask for obedience, only acknowledgement, it demands it. It does not demand perfection, only presence. And until you face it, you live half a life. You live in the light, fooled by the shadow, haunted by half-truths in a half-lit world. Wholeness begins where the hiding ends. A city that forgot its own name. Far beyond the borders of memory, where maps blurred into myths and myths blurred into warnings, there was a city once known for wisdom so bright that even stars paused over it just to listen and learn. But over centuries and choices and compromises, this city forgot its own name. Some said it was neglect. Others said it was fate. The elders whispered that losing a name is what happens when a people stop living by what that name meant. So now the city was called only whatever travelers called it. A lost place, this place, that place, the other place. And in this lost place, people lived fine, but not full. They felt safe, but not seen. They built more walls than windows and convinced themselves that this was peace and safety. Yet under the cobblestones, the old name slept, carved into the bones of the city, the spirit of it, the way that truth carves itself into conscience. Waiting, wanting, a wounded river in the soul. The arrival of a stone singer one evening, as twilight stretched thin, like a truth long delayed, he arrived. And then he became a she, in fact, as the hood lowered, a young woman carrying a hammer, not made of metal, but of melody, a tool called a sound stone. She called herself a stone singer, one of the few left with the ability to awaken the ancient cities by striking the memories buried deep beneath them. People scoffed. "What's in a name?" they shrugged. "It's only a word." Stone, the sorrow of someone who has seen what happens when a people forget the words that once made them whole. This city's test came that night, and she struck her soundstone against the oldest square in the city. The ground trembled, not violently, mournfully, as if the city itself was clearing its throat for the first time in centuries. Streets shifted, walls leaned, windows shivered, and from deep below something answered her. But when she listened closer, she heard not one name, but many. A name of courage carved during a war, a name of compassion spoken during a famine, a name of unity declared during a rebellion, a name of purpose given at the city's birth. The city didn't forget its name. It outgrew it. Fractured. It contradicted itself. It carried too many truths and too many betrayals to claim a single identity anymore. The stone singer fell to her knees. "Your city is not lost," she whispered. "It is unresolved." The choice of the council, as it gathered, timid, stubborn, hungry for comfort group, allergic to change. "What name should we choose then?" they asked. "None," said the stone singer. "Names are not chosen, they are earned." The council panicked. "If we have no name, we are nothing." And she answered with a voice that struck deeper than her hammer. You were lost, not because you lacked a name, but because you lived as if you did not deserve one. Silence fell heavier than the stone. In the awakening, the stone singer gave them a task. You must perform one act that proves who you wish to become, not for glory, not for praise, for truth. The next morning, something changed. People opened their doors to strangers. Merchants gave with coin. Children planted trees in burnt soil and watered. Parents apologized to grown children for words spoken years ago in anger. And in the city, there was a shaking, and it shook again and again, and this time not from sorrow, but from an awakening. The street straightened, light returned to the windows, and the walls turned transparent, revealing these murals of people's own history. The stone singer struck the ground one final time. From the earth rose the city's true name, Illuminate, written not in any language but in a light. People wept because the name was not beautiful. It was not even able to be spoken, but it was so accurate it hit the home. At last, we do not earn identity by hiding from who we are or pretending to be who we are not. By choosing again and again to act like the person we want to be and claim to be. As does the city's name, a person's name, a soul's name, all carved, not in stone, but in behavior. Who you become is not who you call yourself, but what you do when the ground trembles and the truth rises to meet you there. Oh, Father, forgive me for forgetting to foretell about the four who found they almost lost the world. Long before the world was mapped, back when mountains still argued with the moon about who touched the sky first, there lived four wandering spirits who shaped the fates of all humankind. They were not gods, though they carried themselves like memory and myth. They were not mortals, though they bled whenever truth cut too close. Their names were Anywhere, who walked with wide eyes, believing destiny lived in distant horizons. Everywhere, who scattered themselves thin, trying to be all things to all places and dissolving itself into exhaustion all the time. Somewhere, who waited endlessly for a perfect moment that just never arrived. And Nowhere, who hid in the hollow places, convinced that if he stayed unseen, he could never disappoint. Together, they were the architects of potential and the assassins of action. The call they ignored was the one day the world cracked. A fissure split the ancient continent from where the northern snows meet the southern sands, and villages emptied, rivers rerouted, forests fell into themselves like collapsing lungs. The earth groaned a plea, a deep, trembling request for repair, and the four spirits heard it. Anywhere lifted her face to the sky she had always chased and said, "Surely the answer lies far from here. I will look for it everywhere and elsewhere." And as she wandered, west, east, everywhere but the place that needed her, everywhere rushed in every direction at once, because Anywhere was looking everywhere already. A burst of frantic goodwill that scattered like sparks in a storm. She helped everyone a little, and no one quite enough. Somewhere found a quiet cliff and whispered, "When the moment is just right, I will act." But moments do not ripen while someone waits. And Nowhere, poor trembling Nowhere, hid in the echo of his own doubt, fearing he was too small, too slow, too insignificant to matter. So the crack widened, the world dimmed, people wept for help that never came. A child in ruins at the edge of the fissure, sitting, barefoot, mud-faced, unbroken. She did not look powerful. She did not look chosen. She simply looked alive in a place where everything else was collapsing. The four spirits approached her, each certain the others would speak first. Each certain responsibility would fall somewhere else. The child looked up and asked a question that split them sharper than the earth had. "Why didn't you come?" Anywhere stared at her feet, ashamed of every road she ran to instead of through. Everywhere tried to answer, but her voice frayed from stretching herself too thin. Somewhere swallowed hard, realizing that waiting for the right moment had cost them the very last moment. And Nowhere, the quiet one, the one who always hid, was the first to fall to his knees. Tears streaked his dusted face. I thought someone better would rise. I thought if I stepped forward and failed, the world would break because of me. The child touched his hand. It broke because you didn't. The truth hit like thunder wrapped in tenderness. This choice changed everything. The child pointed to the crack, wide as regret, deep as avoidance. You do not need to fix everything, she said. You only need to fix something. Begin there. The rest will follow. Nowhere rose. He stepped to the fissure, palms trembling, heart roaring, and knelt at the edge. He whispered a single word, a word heavy enough to shift the world an inch. Here. The earth responded. A rumble of recognition, a hum of healing. Seeing this, Somewhere stepped beside him, finally realizing the perfect moment was always the one he wasted. Everywhere gathered her scattered pieces and focused them for the first time like a lens capturing light. Anywhere returned from all her searching, finally understanding that destiny is not distant, it is present. Together, the four placed their hands on the ground, and the world began to mend. Not all at once, not perfectly, but truly. Every crisis calls to four voices inside. The part that flees to anywhere, chasing better horizons. The part that dissolves into everywhere, trying to do everything and failing to do anything. The part that waits in somewhere, believing perfect timing is the same as purpose. And the part that hides in nowhere, certain its smallness makes it useless. But salvation arrives the moment one voice whispers, "Here, now, me." The world does not need heroes from everywhere or anywhere. It needs someone in this place, in this moment, who chooses to act before nothing becomes all we have left. Because a bridge refused to choose a river. In a country carved by currents, where three rivers twisted through the land, living like threads wrestling for direction, there stood a bridge, half built and half believed in. It stretched from nowhere to nowhere, a spine of stone stalled in mid-creation. No arches, no rails, no certainty, just pillars rising from the water like questions waiting for answers. The builders had abandoned it, arguing over which river it should cross. The North River was too deep, dark, thunder strong. The East River was too swift, slick, silver bright. And the South River was too quiet and wide, wandering as if it had lost its purpose. Each claimed its current was the truest. Each insisted the bridge must belong to it. And rather than choosing wrong, the builders chose nothing at all. So the bridge stood still, a monument to indecision, weathering seasons as the rivers wore the ridges into its own resolve. One day, a traveler arrived, a pilgrim named Solon, clothed in dust but crowned with conviction, carrying no map, only a purpose he could feel, but not yet understand. When he saw this bridge, he smiled. The sad, knowing smile of someone who recognizes himself in something unfinished. He asked a fisherman nearby, "Why does no one complete it?" "Because choosing one river," the man said, "means forsaking the others." Solon nodded slowly. "That is the fear," he murmured, "in every life." He climbed the first pillar, bare-handed, bare-hearted, bare in the sense that nothing shielded him from the truth held in every stone he clutched. Standing at the edge of the half-bridge, he listened. The North River roared like regret. The East River whispered like ambition. The South River hummed like contentment. 3 currents, 3 callings, 3 futures, and Solon felt the weight of all these choices he had dodged through the years because each path he did not take still lived inside him like a ghost too polite to haunt. So he did something no one expected. He spoke aloud, not to the rivers, but to the bridge itself. "You were never meant to choose for the world," he said. "You were meant to stand so the world could choose for itself." The bridge trembled as if waking from a long sleep. Solon knelt, placed both hands on the cold stone, and whispered a vow that vibrated down through the foundation. "I will not finish you by choosing a river. I will finish you so people can choose freely." And then he built and built and built. He built when the wind mocked. He built when the rain lashed. He built when his muscles screamed and his doubt whispered, "You are only one man." But he built on purpose, and with purpose, once spoken aloud, it became a force stubborn enough to defy physics. And after 27 sunrises and 27 moons, the bridge was finally whole. It did not cross one river. It crossed the one between them all, a raised path that let any traveler choose north or east or south, without fear, without guilt, without losing themselves to indecision, for they could always turn back and choose again. When Solon stepped back, the rivers bowed, not out of obedience, but out of respect, for it had learned. The lesson was whispered through the kingdom like wind weaving through the reeds. A choice does not diminish the path you take, but refusing to choose diminishes the life you get. Courage is not picking the perfect river or the perfect path. Courage is building the bridge that lets you walk forward, and if you're wrong, turn around and try again. The candle that tried to burn the sun. In a far-off realm, in a time not too long ago now, where dawn walked slowly and dusk lingered like a last thought, there was a single candle, crafted by an old hermit, who carved wisdom into wax the way others carve initials into bark. This candle was small, stingy with its flame, steady, but shy. It lived on a windowsill, lighting a little, hoping for nothing, content to warm dust and chase away shadows no farther than the floor. Yet every day the candle watched the sun. It watched the sun climb the sky like a crowned conqueror, pouring gold over fields, over mountains, over every living, longing thing. The candle simmered with jealousy. If the sun could scorch, shine, dazzle, dominate, why must it stay so small? Why must it flicker while the sun flourished? One morning, just before the sun rose, the candle whispered a vow, soft, smoky, stubborn. "I will burn brighter than the brightest thing in the sky." It inhaled deep, dragging oxygen like destiny, and ignited itself with furious ambition. Its wick flared, its wax wept, its flame leapt higher and higher, so high it singed the windowsill and scorched the beams above. But the room stayed dim. The world stayed indifferent. The sun had not yet risen, and even so, the candle's brilliance barely brushed the dark. Still it burned harder, heart pounding in the heat, pride pumping through every molten inch. And then the sun rose. A river of radiance flooded the room, washing over walls, washing over the candle, washing over the tiny flame that suddenly looked like a regret trying to imitate a miracle. The candle sputtered, shrunk, trembled, as its wax melted into a frantic pool. It cried out, not with words, but with the hiss of a flame overwhelmed. The sun paused, as if hearing that little hiss, and spoke without arrogance, only ancient, honest warmth. Why do you burn yourself to be what you are not? The candle flickered ashamed. I wanted to matter. You do, the sun said, in your own way, in your own hour, in your own measure. You matter more than you know. But my flame is tiny, the candle whispered. Then light what is near, said the sun. Warm what is willing. Guide who is lost. That is greatness too. The candle expected mockery from a king. It found mercy instead. So it let its flame settle, small, sincere, honest and steady, like a heartbeat choosing humility. And for the first time it saw the truth. The sun served the world by shining on everything. The candle served by shining on something. One vast, one intimate, both needed. This message carried itself on the soft smoke rising from the cooling wax of the candle. Envy burns you empty. Purpose burns you true. Shine how you're shaped, not how you compare to those you view.
The Whisper Eater of Hollow Glen. Deep inside Hollow Glen, where the trees lean close like elders exchanging secrets, there lived a creature small as a shadow, yet sharp as a vivid memory, called the Whisper Eater. It was not feared at first. It crept quietly, collecting only the faintest sounds, the mutters of people made when they walked alone, the sighs they exhaled when they thought no one heard, the soft confessions that slipped out between the heartbeats. But the Whisper Eaters grow on what they consume, and this one, this glen-born, gloom-bred, fragile little thing, soon fattened on the whispers of people too afraid to speak out loud. It feasted on hidden guilt, gnawed on secret envy, savored the salty scraps of silent self-betrayal. The more it ate, the bigger it became. The bigger it became, the louder it hungered, until one day the Whisper Eater was no longer eating whispers. It was taking words right out of people's mouths. Arguments vanished mid-sentence. Love letters ended abruptly. Apologies dissolved in mid-air before reaching the ear that they were meant for. Promises snapped like twigs under winter weight. And the people of Hollow Glen began to fear speaking at all. Even if truth could be stolen, silence seemed much safer. One dawn, a young woman named Marin walked into the woods with a lantern in one hand and a question in the other. She was known for honesty, and the kind that arrived gentle but landed heavy. Her words carried warmth and weight, and the Whisper Eater had stalked her more than anyone else. Marin stepped beneath the canopy of crooked branches as the forest hushed, as if bracing for revelation. "Whisper Eater," she called, "I know you're hungry. Come." The creature slunk forward, a looming mass of stolen syllables, eyes glowing with all truths it had eaten, belly swollen with unsaid things. It opened its mouth, a cavern of swallowed moments ready to devour her speech. But Marin didn't speak. She sang. A single, startling note pierced the stillness, bright, bold, booming, with the force of everything she had buried. The Whisper Eater recoiled. Songs were too strong, too whole, too honest to steal. So Marin kept singing, verse after verse, voice rising like a river, rushing over years of stifled truth. Her song shook the glen. The branches quivered, the stones hummed,
The air rang clear as clarity itself. The Whisper Eater shrank, shriveled, withered, until it was no more than a tiny puff of smoke, a shadow without a shape. And when the final note faded, Marin spoke the lesson aloud so the forest could carry it and the people could keep it forever. A truth whispered can be stolen. A truth spoken may be silenced, but a truth sung lives beyond you and cannot be swallowed. When she returned to Hollow Glen, people tested their voices, tentatively at first, then boldly, learning again that speaking truth is not about volume, but courage. If you bury your truth, someone else will eat it. If you fear your voice, someone else will use it. But when you give breath to the fullness of what you are, with strength, with sound, with unshakable honesty, no creature born of secrecy can ever starve you again. Did you ever hear about that king who tried to swallow a storm? You know, far beyond the border where maps forget their manners, stood a kingdom built on thunder. Clouds curled low above its towers. Lightning licked the rooftops like restless serpents. And the sky cracked open so often the people learned to sleep through the shattering. But the king, King Maelor the Unmoving, had only one fear. Not enemies, not famine, not death. He feared chaos. He feared anything that refused to bow to his will. So he declared a decree, as brittle as pride and twice as foolish. On the seventh sunrise, I will swallow the storm so that nothing wild remains. The kingdom gasped. The storm laughed. But Maelor prepared. He climbed the highest peak with an iron goblet etched with sigils that had never tasted success. He planted his boots on the trembling stone and shouted at the swirling sky. Submit! The clouds whirled, the wind whipped, thunder rolled like ancient drums, mocking the bravado of a man who confused courage with control. Then lightning struck, not at Maelor, but just beside him, splitting the rock and exposing a cavern. Inside the cavern, a girl watched him with calm, steady eyes. The kind that had seen storms and survived them, not by swallowing, but by listening. What are you doing? She asked. Maelor puffed up. I'm conquering chaos. The girl tilted her head. You're trying to cage the sky with a cup the size of your fear. Maelor snarled. You know nothing of ruling. On the contrary, she said, I know how storms work, and I know how people break. Maelor rolled his eyes and raised the goblet toward the heavens. Storm! He roared. Get in! The storm obliged. Not how he wanted. It surged. It screamed. It slammed down a roaring cyclone that hit the goblet, the king, the mountain, with the blunt force of a truth long denied. Chaos cannot be conquered, only carried, only channeled, only partly understood. The goblet shattered as Maelor fell and the mountain shook. The girl reached him as rain began to fall in fierce, unforgiving sheets. Why did you try to swallow a storm? She asked. Maelor coughed, sprawled in his own broken certainty. Because I'm supposed to lead, and I cannot lead what I cannot control. The girl shook her head. No. You lead by learning where to stand, when to bend, and how to let the wild be wild without letting it ruin you. You do not swallow storms. You weather them in. Maelor stared at her as the storm calmed, not conquered, but now respected. He stood, not too proud, but very present, washed clean as if the rain itself had rewritten him. And that day, when he returned to his kingdom, not to boast, but to change, he rebuilt roads washed away by fear. He rewrote laws that were rooted in insecurity. He ruled with humility as his crown and wisdom as his shield. Because he learned what every leader and every heart must eventually face. Trying to control everything is the fastest way to lose control yourself. But learning to endure, to bend, to soften and to breathe, turn survival into strength, and that strength into grace. Mastery is not domination, it's cooperation. And the storm you fear may be the teacher you need. The light below the lake. Did you know there's a land where mountains murmured and valleys held secrets like cupped hands? And beneath all that there was a lake so still it mirrored the sky with unnerving precision. Locals called it glass water. Travelers called it God's Eye. But the elders whispered its truest name, only in winter, when the wind was thick enough to keep the truth from slipping away. They called it the Lake of Locked Light, because beneath the surface, far below the calm that fooled the world, there hung 100 lanterns, caught in the cold grip of broken choices and abandoned convictions. Each lantern belonged to someone who had once falling and then dropped it, because fear felt easier, or failure felt certain, or maybe shame felt safer than shining. These lanterns glowed faint, flicker thin, like heartbeat whispers, promises made in dark rooms but never brought into the daylight. And in a cottage near the lake lived a boy named Bran, born with more yearning than years, more questions than answers, more hope than history. Bran believed these lanterns were not lost, only waiting for someone brave or foolish enough to swim down and reclaim what the world had taught them to relinquish. So one night, when the moon bowed low and the lake lay flat as it held breath, Bran stepped into the water, fully clothed, fully trembling, fully done with living half a lit life. He dove. The shock of the cold sliced his skin, his certainty, his carefully tended caution. But still deeper he swam, past the shimmer of stars, past the slit of old sorrows, past his reflection and into the realm of the forgotten. His lantern swung in the underwater hush, glowing like guilt, glowing like grief, glowing like glimpses of who he could have been if he had dared sooner. He reached for one of the smallest, the shyest, a small lantern that pulsed with the quiet ache of calling postponed too long. The moment he touched it, the lake roared, a rush of currents, a crush of cold, a chorus of every fear he had ever tucked under his ribcage rose to drown him. What if you fail? What if you fall? What if you're not enough for the light you claim? Bran choked, kicked, panicked. The lantern dimmed. The lake whispered, "Let go and live safe." The oldest temptation of all. But then Bran felt it, a simmer, a spark inside himself. Not the lantern, not the lake, but him. A stubborn spark, the kind that survives storms and shame and silence, the kind that refuses to die even when the soul tries to bury it. He wrapped both hands around this lantern and held it like a heartbeat kicking backward and upward through the drowning doubts, through the crushing cold, toward the thin thread of moonlight that stitched across the surface. He burst into the air, gasping, glowing, now alive. He carried the lantern to shore, and for the first time in his life, he lit it. And the lake trembled, not in anger, but in awe. One lantern reclaimed, freed the next, and the next, and the next. until the whole lake shimmered with the rising light, a constellation ascending from the deep of every lantern, lifting like 100-second chances all over again. The elders said Bran broke an ancient curse. Bran said he just told the truth with action instead of apology. So, spoken in the hush after the courage, he realized there are lights inside you buried because the world taught you to fear them. Dive anyway. Darkness is dangerous, but neglect is fatal. Salvation begins the moment you choose to reclaim what you abandoned. At the edge of an old forgotten kingdom, where fog curled like question marks and the wind wandered without a map, there stood an orchard that bore only one kind of fruit. Echoes. Echoes. Round, ripened echoes, hanging heavy on branches, soft spheres of sound, grown from moments someone once meant but never managed to say. Echoes of every unspoken truth, echoes of every swallowed apology, every almost honest admission became another echo upon itself and rooted here into itself, waiting yet to be claimed. And in this orchard lived a girl named Lilt, quiet keeper, with a name that hinted at a song she'd never learned to sing. Lilt harvested echoes at dawn, carrying them in baskets woven from the hush of yesterday. Each echo pulsed faintly with a voice that wasn't quite hers, a hum of half-lived courage, of half-finished kindness. People from this kingdom came to her with empty hands and heavy hearts, asking for the echoes that belonged to them, but were too afraid to reclaim. Some wanted closure, some wanted comfort, some wanted to know what they might have become if fear hadn't tripped their tongues. But Lilt had a curse. She could not speak a single word of her own. Only the echoes. Echoes ever left her lips. Only the echoes. But one day a stranger arrived, a tall figure wrapped in road dust with eyes deep as doorways and a voice held tight behind his teeth. The stranger placed a single coin on Lilt's table. "I need an echo," he said. "One I lost long ago." Lilt nodded slowly and walked him into the orchard where echoes glowed like lanterns, swaying with the pulse of their unsaid origins. The stranger reached for one, a dim, trembling fruit, barely clinging to itself. Echoes. When he touched it, the echo shivered, shone, and spoke. "I'm sorry." 2 words. Small as seeds, yet heavy as boulders. The stranger's face crumpled. That was meant for my brother," he muttered. "He died before I could say it." Lilt watched him as he fell to his knees under the weight of a truth too late, to be known and yet still so needed. Then the tree beside them rattled, and an echo dropped right into Lilt's hands. It wasn't from a stranger. It wasn't from the kingdom. It wasn't from anyone but her. It pulsed with a light she had never felt before. Warm, urgent, alive. She lifted it to her ear. It vibrated with a voice she recognized instantly, her own, finally rising after a lifetime of silence. "Echoes. I deserve to speak." "Echoes," the echo said. "I deserve to be more than a vessel for others' unfinished stories." "Echoes." Lilt staggered. Her throat burned a bit. The orchard went very still, as if nature itself leaned in to listen. She opened her mouth. A sound escaped. Soft. Shaken. Her very first syllable. The stranger stared, astonished. "What does it mean?" he asked. Lilt breathed deeply. He found her voice again, stronger now, woven with the wisdom of every echo she'd ever carried. "It means," she said, "a truth unspoken becomes a burden. But a truth finally voiced can become a bridge." The stranger bowed his head. Lilt looked toward the orchard, to the echoes that were waiting in their branches, the echoes of unclaimed destinies. And then she spoke the moral here, as clear as sunrise to the stranger. Say what must be said before silence grows teeth. An unsaid truth will follow you forever. An honest word can free you from yourself. At the edge of an old forgotten kingdom, where fog curled like question marks and the wind wandered without a map, there stood an orchard that bore only one kind of fruit. Echoes. Echoes. Round, ripened echoes, hanging heavy on branches, soft spheres of sound, grown from moments someone once meant but never managed to say. Echoes of every unspoken truth, echoes of every swallowed apology, every almost honest admission became another echo upon itself and rooted here into itself, waiting yet to be claimed. And in this orchard lived a girl named Lilt, quiet keeper, with a name that hinted at a song she'd never learned to sing. Lilt harvested echoes at dawn, carrying them in baskets woven from the hush of yesterday. Each echo pulsed faintly with a voice that wasn't quite hers, a hum of half-lived courage, of half-finished kindness. People from this kingdom came to her with empty hands and heavy hearts, asking for the echoes that belonged to them, but were too afraid to reclaim. Some wanted closure, some wanted comfort, some wanted to know what they might have become if fear hadn't tripped their tongues. But Lilt had a curse. She could not speak a single word of her own. Only the echoes. Echoes. Echoes ever left her lips. Only the echoes. But one day a stranger arrived, a tall figure wrapped in road dust with eyes deep as doorways and a voice held tight behind his teeth. The stranger placed a single coin on Lilt's table. "I need an echo," he said. "One I lost long ago." Lilt nodded slowly and walked him into the orchard where echoes glowed like lanterns, swaying with the pulse of their unsaid origins. The stranger reached for one, a dim, trembling fruit, barely clinging to itself. Echoes. When he touched it, the echo shivered, shone, and spoke. "I'm sorry." 2 words, small as seeds, yet heavy as boulders. The stranger's face crumpled. That was meant for my brother," he muttered. "He died before I could say it." Lilt watched him as he fell to his knees under the weight of a truth too late, to be known and yet still so needed. Then the tree beside them rattled, and an echo dropped right into Lilt's hands. It wasn't from a stranger. It wasn't from the kingdom. It wasn't from anyone but her. It pulsed with a light she had never felt before. Warm, urgent, alive. She lifted it to her ear. It vibrated with a voice she recognized instantly, her own, finally rising after a lifetime of silence. "Echoes. I deserve to speak." "Echoes," the echo said. "I deserve to be more than a vessel for others' unfinished stories." "Echoes." Lilt staggered. Her throat burned a bit. The orchard went very still, as if nature itself leaned in to listen. She opened her mouth. A sound escaped. Soft. Shaken. Her very first syllable. The stranger stared, astonished. "What does it mean?" he asked. Lilt breathed deeply. Found her voice again, stronger now, woven with the wisdom of every echo she'd ever carried. "It means," she said, "a truth unspoken becomes a burden. But a truth finally voiced can become a bridge." The stranger bowed his head, looked toward the orchard, to the echoes that were waiting in their branches, the echoes of unclaimed destinies. And then she spoke the moral here, as clear as sunrise to the stranger. Say what must be said before silence grows teeth. An unsaid truth will follow you forever. An honest word can free you from yourself. A moon thief in a mirror tree. Long before stories learned to rhyme, in a land where night breathed blue and shadows stitched themselves into spirals, there lived a young moon thief who believed that anything bright belonged in his hands. He was quick with a grin, slick with a plan, a whisper wrapped in wonder, and a hunger for everything that glittered or glowed. He stole starlight from sleeping ponds, and snatched fire from foxfire dens, plucked comet crumbs from sky cracks and tucked them in his pockets that bulged with borrowed brilliance. But the treasure he wanted most was the moon. Not the whole orb, just a slice, a sliver, a silver smile he could keep as proof that he mattered more than the dark he lived in. One night, on the farthest hill, where horizons leaned close like listening giants, the moon thief climbed a tall, twisted tree. The locals called it a mirror tree. Every leaf was glass, every branch was a blade, and the whole trunk shimmered with reflections of reflections, echoes of echoes, a forest folding into on top of itself, like truth trapped in a tongue too scared to speak it. The moon thief climbed anyway, one hand on hope, one foot on foolishness, one breath held like a stolen coin. He reached the top and reached for the moon. The moon reached back, not with kindness, but with clarity. Its light hit the mirror tree, and the mirror tree hit back with 1,000 reflections, a hurricane of honesty, a blinding bloom of brilliance that showed the moon thief not the moon he wanted, but the man he had become. He saw himself small, scrambling, scared, hoarding light he never created, trying to fill a hollow by stealing what made others shine. He saw that every spark he had pocketed had come at a cost. A fox den dimmed, a pond lost its stars, a sky crack closed forever. Little losses, littering the world like forgotten wounds. The reflections struck him like soft hammers, sharp truths of glittering grief. He clung to the branch as the tree whispered in a voice that sounded like creaking wood, cracking pride.
Child, you cannot claim what was not crafted for your keeping. You cannot brighten your soul by dimming the world.
The moon thief trembled. For the first time, he felt heavy with honesty. He dropped the comet crumbs. They fell like tiny dying suns, burning brief truths on the way down. He emptied every pocket. Ponds regained their stars. Foxfire dens flickered awake again. Skies mended. But the moon? It stayed whole, glowing with a gentle defiance that said, "Shine your own way, or don't shine at all." The moon thief climbed down, not defeated, but different somehow. He learned that stealing light can never save you from the darkness that's deep inside, because borrowed brilliance cannot build a life. So he planted seeds at the base of this mirror tree, seeds of things he had once stolen to now let grow and glow and guide others who walked in the hill of this shadow. Some say he became not so much a thief as a maker, a creator, crafting light from truth, not trickery, from courage, not coveting. When you chase what others have, you lose what you might become. When you steal another's shine, your own soul stays starless. But when you face your reflection with honesty sharp enough to cut, you begin slow, brave work of growing a light that no one can take and no darkness can ever swallow. weaver of unfinished worries. In a mist-covered valley where dawn rose slow, like a shy confession, there lived a weaver, famous for threads so fine they could stitch a shadow to the wind. People traveled far to buy her blankets and banners, shawls that shimmered like quiet hope, and tapestries that told truths no tongue dared to speak. But the weaver had a flaw. Hidden under her loom, she collected worries. Like other artists collect colors. Every doubt she ever swallowed, every fear she ever borrowed, every what if she had ever whispered, she wound into spools stored in baskets, stacked to the rafters. They hummed in the night. They rustled in the morning, a choir of unfinished anxieties, buzzing like bees with no hive. One evening, a wanderer arrived, wrapped in clothes ragged from roads, but eyes steady as candlelight. The wanderer asked for a tapestry that could teach a village how to live with courage. The weaver agreed and opened her baskets to choose the perfect thread. But worry spilled out. A flood of frayed thoughts, tangled fears, half-healed hurts, all tumbling across the floor in a storm of quiet chaos. The wanderer stepped back. "What are those?" The weaver flushed. "My threads?" "No," the wanderer said. "They are your prisons." Weaver snapped. "They are my memories, my warnings, my ways of staying safe." The wanderer knelt, lifting one strand. It vibrated with panic, quivered with old pain. "Safety built from worry," the wanderer said, "is a net that catches nothing except the one who wove it." The weaver felt the truth hit like a hand on a drum, direct, deep, undeniable. She tried, stubbornly, to weave anyway, but the threads broke, mid-air, mid-motion, mid-dream. Every pattern collapsed, no image held, only knots and noise. Her hands trembled. "I cannot complete anything I begin. I bind, I break. Why?" The wanderer placed a palm on the loom. "Because fear cannot form a future. It can only freeze one." The weaver exhaled, a breath she had held for many years. Her fingers loosened, her shoulders lowered. Her eyes burned with the sting of seeing clearly. "What do I do now?" she whispered. "Empty the baskets." The weaver hesitated. Each worry felt familiar, like an old enemy who had become an old friend, who had become a habit disguised as protection. But she gathered her them anyway, one by one. The small, sharp ones, the heavy, hidden ones, the ones shaped like shame, and the ones shaped like someday. She carried them to a river and dropped them in. They hissed, they sparked, they sank, they vanished. When she returned, the loom sat still, waiting, open, ready. She picked a new thread, a bright one, a brave one, not born of worry but of possibility. This time the tapestry held. A rising mountain, a lit path, a figure standing tall with a lantern raised and fear behind, not ahead. The wanderer smiled while the weaver cried. The valley learned. Some people guard their worries as if losing them would make them lose themselves, but worries are weeds. They do not protect the garden. They choke it. When you stop weaving with fear, your life stops unraveling, and what you create next is finally worthy of the person you were meant to become. The Clockmaker's Sparrow. In a cobblestone town where time ticked louder than truth, lived a clockmaker
who built gears with such grace that even the wind waited to breathe until his work was done. Each clock chimed perfect. Each second marched like a soldier. Order reigned, and the people praised him for keeping chaos on a leash. But perched above his workshop lived a sparrow with a stubborn song, a bright chirp, a wild trill, a little burst of beauty that refused to align with the clockmaker's precious precision. Every dawn it sang, every dawn he winced. He tried tapping his tools louder. He tried timing his hammer to drown out the melody. He even tried bribing the bird with breadcrumbs to sing in cleaner, neater, numbered tones. But the sparrow's notes ignored him. It sang anyway, singing sharp, singing flat, singing soft, singing sideways, shaking sense into the silence like a spark in a stack of sleeping embers. One morning, the clockmaker snapped. He stormed onto the roof, arms flailing like a broken minute hand. "Stop!" he shouted. "You ruin the rhythm. You break the order. You bend the day into shapes I cannot count." The sparrow tilted its head. "Maybe the problem," it chirped, "is that you count everything and listen to nothing." The clockmaker froze. For the first time, he heard it. Not as noise, but as nuance. A song that fluttered between flaws and freedom. A tiny anthem reminding the sky that life does not move in perfect lines. He tried to speak, but the sparrow continued. "Your clocks keep time," it said, "but they do not keep wonder. You measure the minutes yet miss the meaning. You chase control while beauty waits at your window and you never let it in." The words landed like raindrops that turned into rivers, sudden and soft and strong. The clockmaker sat down on the roof tiles, feeling the weight and the lightness of being wrong. He looked at his shop below with its rows of rigid clocks all ticking the same story and realized how hollow that harmony was, without a little wildness to challenge it. So he did something unscripted. He smiled. Then he carried all his clocks outside and set them to different tempos, some fast, some slow, some drifting like a lazy river, some dancing like a festival drum. And the sparrow sang over them, not to silence them, but to stitch them together into a kind of belonging that numbers alone could never craft. People gathered, people listened, and people learned that a life may rigid run smoothly, but rarely runs deeply, and precision without play turns the heart into a machine. So the song you keep trying to silence is often the one sound that you can finally set free. Order is useful, but wonder is essential. Let your life keep rhythm, but let your soul keep the music. Whoa, wait. Take it easy, Turbo. Calm down, killer. Let me just get something straight here. Do you mean to tell me that I never told you about the time that this river tried to run backward? Well, hey, so the saying is, the legend says that one morning, this river woke up convinced that it should be running in the opposite way. In the other direction. And nobody knows why. Maybe it was a dream. Maybe just a simple habit of wanting what is not ours and resisting what already is. Anyhow, the river declared its new direction with a roar loud enough to shake loose the moss from every stone. Fish panicked, otters scattered, even the mountains muttered, "Here we go again, son of a chavesta." But with all its strength, the river pushed against its own current. Waves smacked into each other, foam tangled, banks flooded, trees leaned away in worry as if the river strained to rewrite the law of nature that it had been born into. But see, nature has a very stubborn memory.
and the water that tried to climb upstream just slid back, exhausted. The water behind it just crashed and smashed into the chaos. The whole river churned like a heart fighting itself, trying to pump blood back against the body. A turtle, older than rumor, watched all this from a sunlit rock on the other side of the bank. And after a long sigh, the turtle spoke.
River, what are you doing?
I'm choosing my own way, the river said. I refuse to be limited by my path. The turtle squinted. Your path is not your limit. It is your gift. It is how you reach the sea. The river scoffed. A gift? To be predictable? To be bound? I want freedom. The turtle dipped one foot in the water. The current wobbled with an attempt to reverse itself. Freedom is not doing the impossible. Freedom is doing the possible well. The river ignored this warning and pushed even harder. But the more it fought, the muddier it grew. The darker it swirled until even it could not see itself. Finally, the river gasped, exhausted. I feel lost. The turtle nodded. Because you're trying to be water that climbs walls instead of water that carves them. The river stilled. Silence stretched across its surface like a held breath. Then slowly, quietly, it surrendered to its original flow. And in that surrender, something beautiful happened. The water cleared. Fish returned, the bank steadied, and the river moved smoothly again. Not defeated, but restored. Stronger in its purpose, because it stopped fighting its nature and started fulfilling it. You can see here the river is wide now, and wise, feeding fields, carrying boats, touching oceans, but with pride instead of resentment. It learned that a life spent resisting its calling will always feel turbulent. A life that moves in its true direction may still face rapids, but will always reach the horizon with far greater grace, peace, and understanding. Have I told you the tale of the lantern fox? They say long before clocks learned to tick and long before people knew the price of pretending, there lived a lantern fox in a forest that forgot its own name. This fox was clever, quick with a joke, slick with a scheme, proud of every trick he pulled. He stole light from fireflies, hope from travelers, courage from anyone foolish enough to believe the night could be kind. The forest dimmed. Birdsong thinned, paths twisted themselves in fear, even the moon looked away. But the fox loved the darkness. He strutted through the shadows with a grin that glowed faint and false, a dim shine stolen from others. He thought that was power, to brighten himself by breaking the world. One dawn, a wanderer appeared, not tall, not loud or proud, just steady. No weapons, only a lantern that flickered like it had a heartbeat. The fox laughed. He snatched the lantern and sprinted off, sure he had won again. But the farther off he ran, the heavier the lantern grew. The glow sank deep into the metal like it refused to be stolen. At last, the fox stopped, panting, frustrated, confused. The lantern opened on its own and spilled light not across the forest, but into the fox himself. It lit every hidden corner, every cracked intention, every lie the fox ever told, to keep from seeing its own emptiness. The fox trembled. His bravado fell. For the first time, he saw the cost of his clever cruelty. He saw the forest that it had darkened, and the hearts it had dimmed. Then something very strange happened. The lantern kept shining, not accusing, but inviting. The fox reached out, hesitant as a child touching snowfall, and the light rushed in. At first it burned, then healed, then held. The shadows inside softened, shifted, lifted. The fox cried, laughed, changed, not because he earned salvation, but because he finally let it happen. He returned the stolen sparks. Fireflies blazed alive again. Travelers found their courage, and birdsong filled the branches like a promise set to music. The forest remembered its name, and the wanderer, gone, as wanderers often are after their work is done. Only the lantern remained, now carried by the fox, not as a trophy, but as a trust. Some say the fox still roams the world, guiding lost souls through the dark paths, teaching them that depravity is not a destination, but a brief detour, a place you pass through on the way to becoming better than you ever thought you could be. And the moral of this? Simple. A light you steal cannot save you. A light you accept can reshape you. And a light you share can brighten the whole world. Standing, palms open, under these palms, realizing we are a species forever mid-stride, forever mid-strife, chasing meaning in a maze we pretend we mapped, searching the corners we swore we cleaned, trying to do the next right thing, whatever that means. Even when the right thing shakes, the discovery stalks us in broad daylight. It knocks loose the layers we stack around truth, reminds us that people are puzzles with missing pieces and borrowed edges. Fear feels the shift first. It flares, fills the air with static, says, stay small, stay safe. Yet the same spark that scares us pushes us forward, because mankind learns by stepping and overstepping, even when the step hurts or hurts others. Loss walks beside fear like a quiet twin. It steals what we cling to, but in the empty space it leaves, purpose plants seeds. Regret waters them, shame shades them, yet gratitude waits for the sun. They circle each other, fight each other, feed each other, a whole ecosystem under our skin. We learn that regret is not a prison, but a pulse, a reminder that we cared enough to want better. We learn that shame softens when we meet with honest eyes. We learn that gratitude grows louder and louder when we listen for it on purpose, and acceptance always arriving last, not to crown the moment, but to calm it, to bring humility to humanity, who carries all of this at once, a whole storm and a whole sunrise in the same breath. We move through the world with hearts that bruise easily, and yet we try anyway. We fall into failure and rise into clarity. We crack, we question, we choose again and again to do a little bit better. And this is how legacy is built. Legacy is built here in the small, steady choices, in the courage to be kinder than the day before, in the effort to lift what once we let fall, not in statues and not in stories told by strangers, but in the quiet shift when we answer to the call of doing good, even when no one sees us doing good. Meaning is not a finish line. Purpose is not a prize. They are the rhythm behind our ribs, calling us forward, calling us higher, calling us to be human. And so we keep walking, mid-stride, mid-story, mid-song, shaped by the weight and wonder of being alive, and determined somehow, some way, someday, to leave the world a little more open than we found it. Palms up, palms open under these palms. It's hard not to feel deflated when even your best just isn't good enough. There's a place inside me where the sun never fully rises, not because it can't, but because every time it tries, something, someone, life, pulls the blinds just as the first light reaches the window. And I don't know anymore if I'm tired or just finally brutally honest. I don't know if the weight I'm carrying is grief, regret, memory, or the hollow echo of everything I tried to be for people who were never looking in my direction. See, everybody loves to say, try your best, give it your all, push harder, stay strong. But there's a brutality that nobody warns you about. The moment you realize your best still lands short, still gets dismissed, still gets judged by people who never saw the journey, only the result. They had the luxury to critique. It's funny. No, actually, it's tragic how you can love, give, sacrifice, show up bare, raw, open, bleeding sincerity, and still hear, not enough. Not nearly enough. And something inside you, something once sacred, begins to fold. Not violently, not loudly, just slowly. Like a soul trying to become small enough to not be noticed failing anymore. And I hate it. I hate that part of me that flinches now, that doubts now, that rehearses silence because speaking honestly feels too dangerous. A strange world to grow up in where shining too bright is arrogance, but dimming yourself is weakness. Where being vulnerable makes you a target, but being guarded makes you cold. What page of the manual was that on? The one that taught everyone else how to belong? Because I swear to God, I must have missed it. And so here I am, standing in the ruins of all the versions of me I tried to be, to earn a love that shouldn't have been free. And there's this scream, not loud, not audible to human ears, but deep, primal, the kind that forms when a soul is punished for wanting connection. And yet, here's the twisted miracle. Even after the heartbreak, the dismissal, the ghosting, the betrayals, the attempts to be understood that turned into evidence used against me, I still want to try. Maybe because somewhere beneath the bruises of rejection and the exhaustion of trying to matter, there's a heartbeat that refuses extinction, a tenderness that refuses cynicism, a hope that refuses burial. Because maybe my best wasn't meant to fit there. Maybe my voice was too big for the rooms I begged to enter. Maybe my truth was too raw for those addicted to shallow. Maybe my love was too whole for people who knew only fragments. So yes, it's hard to not feel deflated when even your best seems not enough, not nearly enough. But one day, one breathtaking day, overdue day, someone somewhere will hear that voice and whisper, "There you are. I've been waiting." And everything, every ache, every doubt, every silent scream will finally make sense. Because you weren't unworthy. You were becoming. And your best wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a story finally being told by someone who refuses to stay silent anymore. When do I feel most like myself? When do I feel afraid? My who's who in the zoo when not on stage. When I'm busted, no longer trusted, and the jig is up. Then am I free to finally be me? In a mirror of tears wrestling with fears as I feel that hot snot running down my face. That's the really real me. How can I be both David and Goliath at war with myself, a villain within my own skin? In front of a mirror without any armor, out there in the cold without any clothes, yes, that's me. In the bind between being mean and being kind, while confused by right and wrong, while lost in song, perhaps that's me. As a father or friend, when turning around at a dead end, attempting to mend a bridge back to the reality of being a shitty husband, a thief in the night, ready to fight without reason or cause. Is that the real me? Is that the me I let you see so as not to be undone? Is it the me who is laughing and having fun, or is that me over there wailing and pulling out my hair, while giving myself a beating I almost deserve, to work up the nerve to say, I'm sorry, and mean it? Or when in silence I quietly sit, am I most myself when playing the hero, or while at my bottom feeling less than zero? I'm free to really be me when I punish myself and feed the wrong beast. Trial by fire is not my desire, so why do I embrace this brimstone? A vengeful, wrathful God beyond Abraham, or a wicked king, David, with a heart of melted gold? Who cares to care often, but always beware of his cutting words, mighty beyond 100 swords, a legacy of hurt, of disappointment to those I love, who love me still in spite of myself. Perhaps what they see in me is the myself I should want to be. A man-made manifest destiny, determined to be better than I think I can be. That could be the real me, most like myself, if that's how I feel. The fact that I'm feeling is a test of my will to help someone else is in fact helping me. There is truth in behavior and the growth through pain, the great motivator to imagine me as the best me I can be, with a soul set free, not a manipulated, mutilated man like me. I don't want to be. A broken record of felony dreams, silencing the quiet screams inside my head, reaching for life while remembering the dead, is the most like me I most want to be. A loyal and trusted father to my beautiful Kathy Lee. Perhaps then is when I can feel the most like me.